Right, good evening people. First of all, an update for the engine so far. I would like to say a massive thank you for the thought from one of my subscribers, Mike Dawkins, who I'm actually helping with on another project at the moment. He's actually bought or sent me another LED torch, a little square one with multiple ways of connecting up. Now, I left it at my mother's in my haste to get out, so I'm still using this fella here. I do apologise, Mike, but rest assured I will use it. It will definitely come in handy. And so anyway, update today. The fuel pump's back in. I sprayed up the fuel pump, and yeah, again I've gone a bit crazy. I didn't have any orange paint left, so I had some sort of copper metallic sort of paint. So I sprayed the top of that. Obviously I protected the inlet pipes and outlet pipes. Now I've cleaned up the face for the cylinder head. There's the gasket on top. Now the O-ring which goes in here, in this side here, I've actually got on the inlet manifold. Is actually in situ there. Now I've cleaned up the face of the inlet manifold. This port isn't used, and as you see it's upside down at the moment, so on the other side there's a blanking plate which is there, and basically that's underneath. It's the chrome plate there, and that's actually used on the American versions for some sort of fuel control emission type thing. I'm not really that interested. Now what you're looking at is the rear side underneath of the carburetor assembly here, and first notice that there's more discoloration on the, which would be, looking at it this way, the left hand one than the right hand one. Not sure if you can actually see that slight discoloration there. So this either might be leaking slightly. You can see how they're slightly cracked, those rubber mounts. These are the original ones, and as you can see I've previously put them on with some sealant, so I'm not sure where that discoloration's come from, unless it's the one which sits above the fuel pump. And as I said, that gasket's been renewed, and I have a photograph of the faceplate that's all cleaned up. And yeah, so I also had, now there's a push fitting on this connection here. You see that orifice there, which actually goes to the fuel pump, the water pump here. So I wouldn't be too worried about the finish on that top of that ring, because there's actually a connection pipe with two O-rings, and I thought I had two of these O-rings and I didn't. And when I took them out, I'll show you now. Let's come back this way a bit, and here it is. This is the part which actually sits, it drops in. I'll show you now. This part here actually sits into here, and then that mates up with the surface of the take it out, and then the other upside down goes, oh you can't see it because I haven't got the torch. Just a second. See, if I hadn't forgotten that other one, we would have been in business. I'm awfully sorry, Mike, but such is my old age, you see. And if I put that there, as you can see, I know I had a problem. So it just drops into here like so. And what I did find, I'll show you the O-rings. I'll just leave that in situ as it is. And oops, get me my trusty torch out of the way. And two O-rings with these fellas here. I thought I had two of these, and you can see the state of that one there. Look, it's chewed slightly, and this one's not so bad. But it was the one that was at the bottom. I don't think that wasn't leaking, because it wasn't actually coming out from there. Like I say, it was the water pump. These are the parts which I've replaced on the water pump. That O-ring's pretty. These two O-rings were the brass housing. I cut that myself to get it off. It's a bit stuck. That's the top shaft bearing O-ring, which looks in good order. That's obviously the main bearing. That doesn't feel too bad at all. It feels quite good. And these are the strange design. That, by the look of it, it's that's the ceramic washer, I think, that one there. And yeah, that's what sits in the center between the bearing and the top and it creates the seal against the spinner, or the, what's the word they use, the oil spinner. But these don't look too, oh, stuck with the thing now. They don't look too bad either. But nevertheless, we did have water, and that's the seal kit I bought from Holford's, just to get the closest match for the O-rings. And what else is there? Oh yes, so what I've also done is I've made myself a vacuum gauge assembly. As you can see, it is in kilopascals, not in torr or millimeters of mercury, and I would expect it to go to about minus 10 to 15. But the idea is that there's to look at the. I've got another vacuum gauge with a bit high resolution between the segments. So, but this should be good enough to actually measure the balance between the two carburetors, and I'll just show you. So basically what I've got is this flange, and I've put an O-ring on there, and I've used my hot melt gun, this fella here, which is gas driven, again very handy thing, to actually melt on the surrounding of an O-ring. And the beauty is, if this O-ring is damaged or whatever, I can actually pull that all off and clean it all up. But for the purposes of measuring low vacuum, not high vacuum, it's low vacuum, as you can see, I'm going to do this two-handed. So if I put that torch somewhere where it's visible, I come down to here, like so, and if I come this way, you'll be able to see. Let's see if I can get that picture here. And if I come in, I'm just going to try and control the camera without dropping it. You can see the orifice there. Can you? Just a sec. Right. So the idea is that when this is back on and running, what I can do is drop this onto here, and the vacuum gauge should actually read, and then I'll be able to pop it onto the other one, and I'll be able to see the balance between the two, and then balance them evenly as possible. Obviously the higher resolution the better. Hello. And rare shot of an old duffer there, and I haven't cleaned these surfaces up yet. I can do that once it's back in situ, so the obviously when I get around to it, and yeah, when it's all back on, obviously if there's no leaks, that'll be the plan. So I'm nearly, oh, that's the water pipe that's gone back. I need to tighten that up. But yeah, as far as the discoloration that I've seen here, I've checked the tightness of these bolts. They're okay, and I think it could be the fact that it was sitting above the fuel pump and that housing on the block, because that actually that diaphragm pump actually works off of the cam on the jack shaft, which runs all the way across the engine, which turns the water pump, which in turn turns the internal distributor to make the it's all timed and everything with the timing belt and with the engine. So I daren't touch that. I don't want to touch that. And yeah, so the next thing is to get the get this inlet manifold back onto the head. So yeah, so it's coming along nicely. Obviously I've cleaned up the ends of the water pump, the hose connections. It's quite old, but it's in good order, and the pipes are in good order too. There's my thermostat housing, that's going to go back on too. I've resprayed the bolts in high temperature paint. They were, yeah, I did put in one I put in a helicoil in that. So, but this hole here, if I can show you, there's a hole here. I'm not sure what that's for, but what they do include on the gasket, if I put that near enough in situ, you can see there's a blanking hole there. I don't think that was on my old one. I'm not sure what that's for. There goes my little thing. And yeah, so I'm not sure what that's used for. There's no bolt that goes in there. so it's obviously not used, so I don't really want to block it up with anything, but and there's the I think there's a part number TKC4522. Excellent. I suppose I could give the block a bit of a rub and a spray, but hey, you know what's this? It's all pretty good. I'm just eager. I say eager, patiently eager to get it back together again, to give it a test and see how that water pump feels. Let me just pick up my my coupler before I forget. And what I've done is I've used some Dow Corning on this, not grease. It's sort of like a silicon-based grease. It's quite high temperature stuff, and it won't solidify. If I use grease with the heat into the water system, not really that good. But that's a thin slither of Dow Corning. So that sits in there. It's quite hard, and the hard thing about getting this in now is to make make this hole up here with that one whilst getting it into the head. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, and then putting all the bolts in and tighten them up. And I've got some sealant to use, obviously for the gasket. This blue stuff. Can't remember what it's called now, but yeah, it's usually the standard stuff. And then we'll see down there if we can see any. Let's see if I can see in there now. I've got a bit more room. You might be able to see in there the. Not sure if you can actually. Let's come down this way a bit. I'll just tilt the screen on the camera. Get some. If I can see that in there. No, can I? You might be able to see. There's the brass housing for the water pump, all nice and clean. So yeah, we'll see what happens afterwards, eh? And there we are. Okay, I might just crank the engine a bit because there's a bit of water in there. And I suppose if I crank the engine, and do I really want to do that? I could crank the engine with a bit of water in there, but I think I'd rather fill it up first and see what happens. Okay, with that I shall leave it there. I hope that was a bit more interesting than the the usual stuff, and yeah, just a slow progress when I get the time, and yeah, we'll see. So now, oh yes, I was going to point out on the TR7 workshop manual, which is what it is, as you can see there. This is a bona fide Triumph TR7, published by BL Cars Limited. It only shows the fuel pump, the mechanical fuel pump, with one gasket, as you can see there, one gasket. Now, on my car, or on this car, it had the bigger, thicker cork gasket, and then the other gasket, this gasket. And I do believe that there must be a difference between the older version of TR7 and this one. I can't remember what my coupe all those years ago looked like, so I don't think I had a problem with the fuel pump. But I did remove the thick cork gasket and saw how the fuel pump fitted. There's a hook in there which gets knocked and creates the up and down motion, which vibrates the diaphragm, which pumps the fuel in and out. So I had to keep that cork gasket on there, just as a standoff. And I think that cork is a solid cork gasket. So yeah, it's important that it goes back on, because there's no way that was going flush with just a single gasket on it. So they haven't. So I think this must have been published. Let's have a look, see when it was published, because I'm not sure. It's immaterial. Anyway, it doesn't include that information regarding the gasket for the fuel pump. Just a bit of useless information there, but nevertheless, it is information for you if you need it. Okay. I shall leave it there for now. Thanks very much and goodbye.